Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again, sorting through all the complex details to bring you, well, the actionable knowledge you need. And today, oh boy, we're stepping onto some very different links. We're talking T-Legion, TCG, think golf, but reimagined. It's this mythic duel, knights, dragons, and these powerful things called relics, all happening on these living courses.
It's a fantastic system, really. It manages to capture that core feeling of golf, you know, the frustration, the focus, the pure chance sometimes, and bake it into these really intense fantasy mechanics. The basic idea is, well, straightforward enough. Get your dragons up the course.
Yeah.
Success is measured in advancement.
Yeah, and hitting that perfect dragon strike, getting it right in the lance zone, that feels great, no doubt. But our mission today, our real deep dive, is about something maybe less glamorous, but absolutely critical. It's about the cold, hard truth of golf. In this game, things go wrong, you miss hit, your dragons end up in the weeds or the sand, or worse. So we are navigating the absolute lifeline mechanic in T-Legion, the Hazard Retrieval Relics.
And this is just essential stuff if you want to get good at T-Legion. Honestly, these retrieval relics, they're kind of the strategic heart of the game. Every turn feels like you're lining up a shot, sure, but winning isn't just about distance. It's about how you handle those inevitable screw-ups, those moments that send your heavy hitters, your dragons, into that dreaded hazard zone. So yeah, we're going deep today on the 5 main classes of these relics. The recovery tools, but each one has its own way of working, its own philosophy almost.
Okay, good. Let's lay the groundwork first, make sure everyone's on the same page. The key players here, you've got your knight, that's you, the commander, right? Sitting back at the keying ground, managing resources. And a big one is GP game points. That's like your score, your health, your stamina, all rolled into one.
Exactly. GP is your core resource pool, managed by the knight. Then you've got the dragons. These are your strikers, your muscle out on the course. They line up in the lance zone based on their YDS stat, that's yards. You know, putter slot, iron slot, all the way up to driver. They make the attacks, but crucially, they're the ones taking the risks. They're the ones who can end up in trouble.
And supporting all this, you have the relics, sitting over in the relic zone. These are your tools, your special moves, your backup plans, everything from like physical clubs to tactical instants. And today's focus is entirely on those relics designed just for one thing: dragging a dragon back from the brink.
Yeah, and that focus tells you something important about the game's design, doesn't it? Recovery isn't just some minor mechanic, it's central, it's costly, it's something you have to build into your strategy.
Okay, so let's talk about the problem itself, the hazard zone. A dragon messes up its strike roll, and boom, it's off the fairway. And the game uses these number codes to tell you how bad the situation is, right? Like the lie in actual golf.
Precisely. When a dragon fails, its strike roll, typically if you roll a 4, 5, or 6 on the die, gets sent to one of 3 recoverable hazard types. And yeah, the number indicates the severity. Rolling a 4 puts the dragon in the bunker. Sand trap, that's generally the mildest hazard you can recover from. The penalties aren't usually too bad. Maybe a small hit to DG that's Dragon Guard, it's sort of defense or resilience, or maybe HD hit damage, it's striking power. Retrieval from the bunker tends to be the most straightforward.
Okay, bunker's bad, but manageable. Then there's 5. That maps to the rough, the deep grass. I'm guessing this is where it starts to get, well, annoying.
Annoying is a good word for it.
Yeah,
the rough is definitely messier. You're looking at mixed penalties here. Often it hits your knight's composure, so you lose precious GP, your game points. And on top of that, it usually hits another stat too, maybe YDS, maybe something else. It's frustrating because it doesn't just penalize the dragon, it slows down your whole game, eats away at your knight's morale.
All right, hitting GP feels personal. And then the big one, the recoverable big one, is 6, the water hazard. This sounds like it could just wreck your turn.
Oh, it's nasty. Easily the worst place to be, recovery-wise. Water hazards typically mean severe tempo hits. You might lose stats across the board like DG and YDS both taking a hit. Often the dragon gets locked down with negative statuses too. If your big par 5 dragon splashes down into water, yeah, your next turn or two is basically just crisis management. Forget offense for a bit.
Okay, so bunker 4, rough 5, water 6. Those are the places you can get your dragon back from. But there's a limit, a point of no return. That's OB, out of bounds.
Crucial distinction, yeah. OB isn't technically a hazard you recover from, it's the graveyard. The source material is absolutely clear on this. If a dragon goes OB, that card is removed from the game. Permanently. Gone. Exile. No relic, no fancy knight ability, nothing in the card text can override the OB seal. That's the game's ultimate penalty. No takebacks.
Wow. Okay, so the stakes are high. Which brings us back to actually trying the retrieval. You said it's never free, there's always a cost just to attempt it.
That's the core tension right there. Doesn't matter if you're using a simple gear relic or some high-risk technique thing. When you activate a Hazard Retrieval Relic, it applies the universal Hazard Retrieval Cost table keyword. There's an upfront cost, sure, maybe discarding a card or paying some GP, but the real cost, the one that always bites, is to tempo hit. Any successful retrieval, any successful one, means the dragon comes back into the Lance zone exhausted.
Exhausted, okay. And that's the killer, is it? Stops you dead in your tracks, offensively speaking.
Absolutely, it's the tempo tax. That dragon, even though it's back, it cannot use its strike ability that turn, period. Doesn't matter how good its stats are or where it landed, you essentially sacrificed your current turn's offense, your forward momentum, just to get that dragon back for the next turn. That rule alone turns retrieval from just cleaning up a mess into a really deep tactical decision. You're not buying back strength immediately, you're buying time.
Okay, so costs are high. OB is the ultimate danger. How does the attempt itself work? You play the relic, you pay the cost, then what decides if you pull off the miracle shot or, shank it?
That's where the dice come in. The core mechanic for all these relic retrieval attempts is the shot shape roll. It's a single 6-sided die, a d6. And this roll determines the quality of the recovery. How well did it go? It's separate from the dragon's own stats. It's all about the retrieval attempt itself. And the outcome, based on the number rolled, dictates what happens next. It follows this really neat power curve. Honestly, it mirrors the drama of a recovery shot in real golf perfectly.
Right, and like in golf, lower numbers are better.
Yeah.
1 is best, 6 is disaster.
Yeah.
Let's break that down, because that one roll sounds like it can make or break a hole.
Okay, starting at the top. Roll a 1. That's a straight shot, perfect escape, cleanest way out of the bunker or the water. Usually gives you controlled, positive outcomes. Might be a full GP restore for your night, maybe a temporary stat boost for the dragon. Good momentum, you got out clean, negated the hazard's penalty, feeling good.
Nice. And rolling a 2 or a 3 is still pretty great, right? Like controlled power or controlled placement.
Exactly. Our 2 is a draw. That often translates to gaining good HD, hit damage, and solid YDS yards. A powerful recovery, setting you up well. A 3 is a fade, more about control, often gives you high DG, Dragon Guard, and maybe some measured YDS gain for good positioning. Both 2 and 3 are safe, positive results. The dragon's back, probably not exhausted anymore next turn, and no extra penalties applied, you're back in the game.
But then we hit the less desirable outcomes, the 4, hook, and the 5, slice. So the dragon's saved, it's back. But there's a but.
There's always a but with 4 and 5. This is that frustrating recovery shot in golf, right? You kept it in play, but So yeah, a hook or a slice means noticeable downsides. It reflects that you maybe overcorrected or didn't quite pull it off cleanly. The dragon is rescued, yeah, but you're taking penalties. Maybe reduce DG on a slice. Maybe you lose some resources or take harsh stat cuts on a hook. The flavor is perfect. Okay, you're not in the hazard anymore, but now you got an awkward lie for your next shot, where you effectively took a penalty stroke. It translates to a negative status or cost for the following turn.
And then,
Yeah.
what everyone dreads, rolling a 6, the shank. This is where things can go properly sideways.
The 6 is pure catastrophe. Now, what kind of catastrophe depends a bit on the relic you use. For some of the safer relics, a 6 might just mean the retrieval attempt fails. You paid the cost, rolled the die, got a 6, and the dragon is still stuck in the hazard. Wasted effort, lost tempo. Bad, but survivable. But for the higher risk relics, especially those technique ones we'll get to, rolling a 6 is the nightmare scenario. It often means the dragon goes straight out of bounds and be
Wow. Yeah. Permanent OB seal. Game over for that dragon.
Okay, I have to ask, just thinking like a player here, knowing that a 6 could just poof, delete my dragon permanently, doesn't that make trying to retrieve from, say, the rough or water almost too risky? It feels like you're forced into this coin flip that could lose you the whole match.
It absolutely forces that kind of agonizing decision. That's the genius, or maybe the cruelty, of the design, right? You're never truly safe when you use a retrieval relic. You're already in a bad spot. You have to use a costly tool to try and get out. But the tool itself forces you into this high variance role where the worst possible outcome isn't just failing, it's total permanent loss. It really captures that gut-wrenching moment in golf. You're trying that hero shot over the water. Does it save the hole, or does it find the other water hazard? That risk management is exactly why we need to understand these relics properly. Okay, that really sets the scene. Every retrieval is a gamble, shaped by that shot-shaped roll, burdened by the exhaustion cost, and haunted by the ghost of OB. So now let's get into the heart of it. Right. 5 different types of hazard retrieval relics. You said they have distinct philosophies. What makes these subclasses so important for strategy?
Well, what's really clever is how the designers balance these 5 subclasses. They did it by making them stick rigidly to specific stat anchors. HD, DG, YDS, GP. And they also have strict part restrictions, like which size dragons they can even retrieve. This whole structure prevents any one relic type from becoming the do-everything solution. There's no silver bullet. It forces you, the player, to really commit to a recovery style, a philosophy that has to match your Legion's overall strategy. Are you playing aggressively, like Slice Fang, constantly risking it all? Or are you playing conservatively, focusing on stability, like Iron Resolve? Your choice of retrieval relics reflects that.
Interesting. Okay, let's break them down. First up, the most physical-sounding one, Gear Retrieval. Hashtag tag 2.1 Gear Retrieval, the precision tool.
Right. Gear is exactly what it sounds like. It represents the actual physical tools a golfer uses. Your wedges, your irons, maybe some specially designed recovery club. Its identity is purely mechanical, purely about the equipment. Think tool, not the soul. That's the idea here.
Okay, so if it's just the tool, its stats must reflect that. The anchors have to be about the physics of the hit, right? So
Yeah.
YDS, yards for distance, and HD, hit damage for the impact power.
Exactly that. The club influences how far the ball goes and how hard it's hit. And here's a key restriction. Gear relics are specifically barred from affecting GP, game points. Why? Because GP represents the knight's morale, their stamina, their composure. A physical club can't magically boost your mental state, right? It only affects the physical result of the shot. That philosophical line is drawn very clearly.
Gotcha. So gears for reliable, tool-based recovery. Probably best for standard stuff like getting out of a bunker. Success or failure translates directly into trade-offs in distance and power. Can you give an example of how that might look different for different legions?
Sure. Let's imagine a card called Sandblaster Wedge. Okay. For an aggressive legion like Slice Fang, their version of this gear card might give a huge +4 YDS bonus if the retrieval works. Rolls 1-3. Gets the dragon way down the course. But maybe it comes with a mandatory Manitou DG penalty? They took a risky, powerful swing to get it out, sacrificing some defense for that aggressive repositioning. They accept that trade-off.
Okay, pure aggression, and how would a more defensive legion, like Iron Resolve, use that same Sandblaster Wedge?
Iron Resolve would probably have a version that's much more conservative. Maybe it only gives +1 YDS, but perhaps it grants the retrieved dragon a temporary +1 HD buffer for its next attack. Their focus isn't maximizing distance, it's ensuring a safe exit and setting up the next turn reliably. Even if they roll a 4 or 5 hook slice, that HD buffer might help them succeed on their following strike. For them, gear is about steady, reliable recovery for their mid-range threats.
Now, this par cap thing you mentioned is really important here too. Gear relics, you said, are generally capped. They can only retrieve par 3 or par 4 dragons. They can't save the big par 5 guys. Why not? Too heavy.
Mechanically, yeah, you could say that. Par 5 dragons are defined by having massive YDS stats. They're your drivers, your big woods. They represent the largest, most powerful creatures on the course. The lore sort of implies their sheer size or mythic weight makes them too much for just a standard mechanical tool to wrench out of a serious hazard like deep rough or water. It suggests you need something more fundamental, a change in technique, or maybe environmental help to save them. A simple club just doesn't have the leverage, metaphorically speaking, and that constraint. It immediately shapes your strategy. Biggest hitter is in trouble. Your standard gear tools are useless. You need another plan.
Okay, so gear retrieval. Reliable, physical, focused on YDS and HD, great for your standard dragons, but can't handle the big bosses. It's the nuts and bolts recovery option. Hashtag tag 2.2 Swing Retrieval. Rhythm and form. All right, moving from the tool itself to the person wielding it, or the dragon swinging it, I guess. We have Swing Retrieval. This sounds like it's about the golfer's technique, their rhythm, their discipline.
Yeah.
Like choking down on the club or adjusting your stance.
That's exactly the flavor. Swing relics are about how the recovery shot is made. They focus on discipline, control, the form of the swing. Because of that focus on control and discipline, their main stat anchor is DG, Dragon Guard, resilience. The idea is, if your swing form is good in discipline, your dragon is less vulnerable, better protected. Good form equals good defense.
Okay, DG makes sense. And you mentioned they often pair with YDS yards too, because technique affects distance, but maybe in a more controlled way than just raw power.
Measured is the key word there, yeah. Swing relics typically don't give those huge explosive YDS games like some gear cards might. They provide reliable distance, controlled distance. And interestingly, this is the first subclass where we see GP game points become an acceptable secondary effect, but only sometimes. The justification is that executing a difficult shot with perfect discipline under pressure that can boost your morale, your knight's stamina. So a really clean swing retrieval might give a little GP back.
So swing relics are like safety nets based on rhythm and form. Not aiming for the spectacular recovery, but aiming for stability. Trying to make those bad shot-shaped rolls, the 4s and 5s, less punishing.
Exactly. They might tilt the odds slightly towards the better rolls, 1 to 3, or they might impose only moderate costs if you do roll a hook or slice. Think of a card like maybe Disciplined Chip. If it works, maybe it grants +3 DG to the retrieved dragon for the turn. Even though it's exhausted, it's now tougher to hit back. And critically, if you roll that dreaded shank with a swing relic, it often mitigates the disaster. Instead of automatically going OB, maybe it just results in a failed retrieval. Still bad, waste your turn, but you didn't lose the dragon permanently. It turns total catastrophe into just a major setback.
But the par cap is the same as gear here, right? Capped at par 4 dragons. Why can't Supreme Discipline save a par 5 dragon? That feels a bit counterintuitive.
It's a great question, and it gets right back to that design philosophy about the different recovery types. With the par 5 dragons, again, because of their sheer size and impact, represented by huge YDS, seem to require something beyond standard good practice. Discipline, swing, and good tools, gear, represent the, let's call it the orthodox way to play golf, or recover in this game. The game design seems to be saying that orthodox methods just aren't enough for the biggest crises involving your main threats. You need something unconventional, something riskier, which again points us towards that technique subclass we keep mentioning. Swing is really about shoring up your mid-game, making sure your par 3s and 4s are resilient, recoverable, keeping them in the fight consistently. It's not designed for miracle saves on the biggest guys. Hashtag tag 2.3 course retrieval, the environmental morale.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift perspective now. We've done the tool, gear, the skill, swing. Now we look at the environment itself with course retrieval. This represents what, like getting a lucky bounce, forgiving lie in the rough, the wind helping you out?
Precisely. Course relics tap into the landscape, the conditions, the environment, shaping how the dragon gets out. And what's really unique here is their primary stat anchor, GP, game points, morale, momentum. Why GP? Because the course, the environment, is seen as this macro level factor. It affects the overall flow, the tempo, the psychological state of the game more than the raw power of single hit. So a successful course retrieval often represents a bit of external luck, some forgiveness from the environment itself, which naturally boosts your knight's confidence, their GP.
Ah, okay. So using a course relic feels a bit like hoping for good fortune. Success means your morale goes up, GP, and maybe your position improves. You said they often pair with YDS or DG2, but rarely HD.
Right. The terrain might affect where the dragon ends up, YDS, or how exposed it is, DG, but the ground itself doesn't make the dragon swing harder, HD. That logic holds. Think of a card like Favorable Wind. If you succeed, maybe it gives you a nice chunk of GP back, helping your knight score, and gives the dragon a minor +1 YDS bump. It's usually a low-cost, stable kind of recovery, focused on getting back in the game mentally and positionally.
That makes the contrast between legions really clear here too. Iron Resolve, the stable legion, must love course relics for stabilizing their GP and ensuring safe, morale-boosting recoveries.
Absolutely. Whereas a legion like Slice Fang, they probably see the environment as just another chaotic element to exploit. They might use a course relic called, say, Treacherous Slope. Maybe on a great roll, 1 to 2, it gives a huge GP and YDS bonus, a massive tempo swing. But on a bad roll, 4 or 5, maybe it costs the knight a ton of GP. They're gambling on the environment, accepting that a bad bounce could be disastrous for their score.
And let me guess, the par cap holds firm again. Generally capped at par 3 or par 4 dragons. Luck, like skill or tools, isn't enough to save the giants.
You got it. Course relics are about situational environmental help. They emphasize that sometimes it's not your skill, it's just the way the ball bounced. They're great for pulling your knight's GP back from the brink, especially if the match has been a real grind. It's a recovery option that isn't about offense at all. Hashtag tag 2.4 technique retrieval, the clutch gambit.
All right, if those first 3 gear, swing, course are the standard ways to recover, technique sounds like the exception. The desperation play. You called it the clutch gambit, the flop shot over a bunker, cutting through trees, the miracle shot.
That's exactly the energy. Technique embodies high risk, high reward, tactical audacity, pure clutch moments. Because of that, it's anchored by the aggressive stats, HD, hit damage, and YDS yards. These aren't about stable recovery, they're about explosive repositioning, getting the dragon out and immediately ready to threaten again, or at least escaping certain doom in a spectacular fashion.
And this is where the costs get really steep, right? Unlike course, where GP was often a benefit, here GP is often paid upfront as a cost. like taking a penalty stroke just for trying the crazy shot.
Exactly. The audacity costs you. You're spending your knight's precious composure, their score buffer, just for the chance at pulling off this miracle. But here's the absolute game changer. The reason technique exists and is so vital, despite the risk. Technique is the only subclass that can reliably retrieve par 5 dragons, your boss monsters.
Okay, that's the linchpin. That explains everything. If your massive high YDS driver dragon ends up sunk in a water hazard 6, your gear is useless, your swing discipline isn't enough, the course won't help, you have no choice. You must reach for a technique relic.
It creates this incredible strategic pressure point. When your most valuable asset is in the deepest trouble, the game forces you towards the single riskiest category of recovery tool. And that risk isn't just high cost or bad stats on failure, it's codified directly into the shank roll outcome. With technique relics, rolling that 6 very, very often results in the ultimate penalty, immediate OB seal.
So you try the miracle shot to save your best dragon, you roll that dreaded 6, and instead of just failing, you lose the dragon permanently. Wow, that tension is just brutal. The source notes mentioned a card like Dragon's Desperation Slice.
Yeah, something like that perfectly captures it. Maybe it offers a potential +5 HD bonus if you roll a 1, setting up a monster next turn. Huge reward. But the card text will explicitly say something like, on a shot-shaped roll of 6, shank, this dragon is immediately sent out of bounds. No ambiguity. Aggressive legions like Slicefang, they live for this stuff. They lean heavily on techniques, embracing that HDYDS focus, constantly dancing with the OB danger because the potential payoff getting their biggest hitter back online instantly is so huge.
Compared to Iron Resolve, who probably hoard their technique relics like precious jewels, only bringing them out as a last desperate resort when a par 5 absolutely must be saved and they just cross their fingers on the roll. It really is the definition of make or break. #tag 2.5 Caddie Retrieval.
And finally, rounding out the 5, we have the calming influence. Caddie Retrieval. Think of the caddy, the mentor, the coach, the one managing the player's nerves and strategy. They stabilize things, offer guidance. They're the protective safety net.
Okay, so this is basically the polar opposite of technique. Technique is the wild gamble for high reward. Caddie is the steady hand focused on minimizing loss.
Exactly. Caddies are all about survival and stability. So their primary stat anchors are DG, Dragon Guard, Defense, Resilience, and GP Game Point Score Protection, keeping the knight composed. Why those two? Because good advice, good guidance protects your score, GP, and makes your dragon better able to handle the next challenge, DG.
And following that logic, Caddie Relics almost never touch HD. Tit damage, right? Just like Horse Relic.
Correct. Caddies are stabilizers, not power boosters. Their role isn't to help you hit harder, it's to minimize the chance of things going catastrophically wrong. The design philosophy is clear. Guidance helps you endure, it doesn't make you more aggressive.
So their whole job is loss minimization. They're the safest way to attempt a retrieval. And when they fail, it's not usually that explosive OB disaster.
Generally not, that's the key appeal. A Caddie Relic failure, rolling a shank, 6, typically results in what you might call quiet attrition. Pay the cost, the dragon stays in the hazard, maybe it gets exhausted again, you lose tempo, it's frustrating, but you usually avoid that instant permanent OB seal. A Caddie card, maybe called Steadying Presence, might grant a good chunk of GP, maybe +4, and explicitly state that if you roll a 6, the retrieval fails, but the dragon is safe from OB. It buys you survival, if not progress.
Reliable support, but still they have limits. Most Caddie Relics also cap out at par 4 retrievals.
That's right. They provide steady guidance for your main forces, but they aren't miracle workers capable of hauling out the biggest boss dragons from the worst spots. They are, however, probably the single best variance mitigation tool in the entire game. For legions like Iron Resolve that want to grind out wins and control the board, caddies are absolutely essential. They keep those vital par 3 and 4 dragons cycling back, preventing small errors from snowballing into game-losing disasters. They represent control and consistency in a game that's often defined by chaos.
Man, so it's really something how this game captures all these different facets of golf, isn't it? You've got the tool itself, gear, your own skill, swing, the environment or luck, that moment of sheer desperation technique, and the calm advice, Caddie. And by being so strict about which stats they affect and which dragons they can even lift, the designers really force you to think about why you're choosing a particular recovery method. It's not just about stats, it's about philosophy. #tag outro.
Yeah, if you pull it all together, that's the real beauty of it. These 5 relic subclasses force you to choose and then commit to a recovery philosophy that has to sync up with your legion's entire game plan. You see a chaotic, offense first legion like Slice Fang, they're gonna load up on gear and technique, embracing that high HDYDS potential, knowing full well that they're constantly risking the OB seal for those explosive plays.
Right. Versus a deck like Iron Resolve, all about discipline and control. They'll lean much more heavily on Swing and Caddie Relics, focusing on DG and GP sustain. Their goal isn't necessarily the biggest recovery, it's the safest recovery, reducing variance, making sure their dragons keep coming back, even if it costs them a turn of offense.
And that fundamental strategic choice becomes crystal clear the second one of your dragons lands in a hazard. You have to master retrieval. You need to know instantly. Do I need a reliable tool gear here? Do I need the safety of guidance, Caddie? Or is the situation so bad that I have to risk it all on a gamble technique? That decision tool, gamble, or guidance often determines whether you scrape by and save the whole, or whether you suffer that catastrophic impact and potentially lose a key piece permanently.
And that whole tension around the par fives is just central. Your biggest, baddest dragon, your driver, ends up in the water. Suddenly, 4 out of 5 recovery types are useless. You are locked into technique, staring down the barrel of that shank roll, possibly meaning OB, forcing you to use the riskiest method for your most valuable unit. It's brilliant, painful design.
Yeah, it really is. And it raises a final kind of thorny question for you, the player, to think about as you're building your legion and playing your matches. Think about this. Your knight, your commander, is permanent. They only have to step onto the course themselves if all your dragons are either stuck in hazards or already out of bounds, and we know Gear, Swing, Course, and Caddie cannot save those big par fives. So, how often should a knight deliberately choose to just leave their par 5 dragons sitting in hazard? Just eat the massive tempo loss of having that huge threat unavailable for another turn, maybe longer, rather than risk activating that technique relic, rather than risk rolling that shank and suffering the permanent irreversible OB seal just to maybe get it back exhausted one turn sooner. That choice right there, patience and absorbing the tempo hit versus risking absolute catastrophe for a faster recovery, that might be the single biggest thing that separates a champion knight from just another reckless duelist on the Mythic Links. Something to chew on.